Hey young man, Mr. Maldonado here. Alright, so this is going to be a review of the test questions that you had on your 24-week test. So I want you to go through all the questions here so that you can get a better understanding of what you did right and why it was correct, or what you missed and why you missed it, so that hopefully you understand it better for the future. Let's look at question 1. Question 1 says, which of the following lists contains an element followed by a compound that contains that element? Alright, so we're looking for an element and then a compound that contains, which means to include, so includes that specific element. So first let's look at the difference between an element and a compound. Let's see if we can remember that. So elements make up everything. An element is one single substance characterized by either one capital letter or one capital letter followed by one lowercase letter. So examples would be N, which is nitrogen. Another example would be Ag, which is silver. So remember, as long as you have just one capital letter in that group, you have an element right there. Compounds, on the other hand, that's when you have more than one element that is chemically combined. So you can have 2 elements, 3, 4, 5, and the list keeps growing, and that's where you get your compounds. So examples would be something like NaCl, so you have sodium and chlorine to make sodium chloride or salt. You could also have C6H12O6, where you have carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and if you remember, this gives us glucose, which is produced in the plants during the process of photosynthesis. That's also an organic compound because it includes carbon and then hydrogen and oxygen. So let's look back at our answer choices to see if we can figure out which one the right answer should be. Alright, so we have, when you're looking for an element followed by a compound. So first of all, the element has to come first because the compound follows it. And so just by looking at that, if you look carefully here, there's actually only one that even starts with an element first. But let's look through all of them just to make sure. So letter A has NH3. So right there, if you have NH3, is that an element or a compound? Great job, it's a compound because you have 2 different elements, nitrogen and hydrogen. Now if you look at what follows it, you have He. What is that, an element or a compound? Great job, it's an element. So in this case, He, what element is that? If you don't remember, go back to your periodic table, look it up. Great job, that's helium. Is helium the same as hydrogen? No, so this one obviously doesn't make sense. Let's look at letter B. We have H right there, element or compound? Great, element, that's hydrogen. And then let's see what comes after. What is H2O, element or compound? Great job, it's a compound right there. And do you have the same element as before inside this compound? Yeah, you have H right here, H right here. So just the way the question asks, you have an element followed by a compound that contains or includes that same element. So far B looks like a good answer. Let's go to the next one. CO2, compound or element? Great job, compound, because you have 2 elements in there, carbon and oxygen. What comes next? C. Is that an element or a compound? Great job, it's an element, C, which is carbon. So even though this element right here is found in this compound right there, remember the question specifically says an element followed by a compound, which means the element has to come first and then the compound comes second because the compound follows the element. So for that reason, letter C can be eliminated. Let's go to the last one. NaCl, what is that? Great job, it's a compound. You have sodium, which is Na, and Cl, chlorine, sodium chloride, or salt. And CO, element or compound? Great job, it's an element, because remember, you only have one capital letter here. In this case, what element is this? Yeah, that one's cobalt. So in this case, is cobalt the element here found anywhere in NaCl? No, it's not. So that's not our answer. So letter B would be the correct answer. Let's look at question 2. In the following chemical equation, how many different elements and compounds are represented? Represented means kind of like seen. So how many do you actually see there? So let's break it down here. So remember correctly, when you have a plus sign or the yield arrow right there, that's separating one substance from another substance. So when we're looking at this one, we have 4Fe plus 3O2 yields 2Fe2O3. So again, these split them. So you have one substance here, another substance here, and a third substance there. So we have to determine which ones are elements, which ones are compounds. So let's start with 4Fe. Does this number have anything to do with whether it's an element or a compound? Great job, it doesn't. All you have to look at is the actual chemical symbol, which would be our letters. So Fe, we're going to focus on just that right there, Fe. Element or compound? Great job. That one right there is an element. What about O2? Because again, we don't need that 3 there. It doesn't have anything to do with it, so the O. Great job. That's also an element because you have just one letter by itself, which is O. Now, I know sometimes you think when you see the little 2 right here, you kind of sometimes think to yourself, hey, but that tells me that I have more than one. Yeah, there's more than one oxygen, but it's still just one element. And let's look at this last one over here. Fe2O3. Again, the large number doesn't affect it. Is that an element or a compound? Great job. That one right there is a compound because you have two different elements. You have Fe, which is iron, and then you have O, which is oxygen. So based on this, how many different elements and different compounds do we have here? Great job. We have 2 different elements and we have 1 compound. 2 elements came from 1, 2, 1 compound from right there. So let's look at to see which one matches. First one, 3 elements and 1 compound. Is that right? No. Letter G, 2 elements and 2 compounds. Does that match? Great job, it doesn't. Letter H, 3 elements and 0 compounds. Incorrect again. Finally, J, 2 elements and 1 compound. Great job, that matches exactly what you have there, making letter J the correct response. Let's look at question 3.